She was the most loved queen her kingdom had ever seen, until she locked the palace doors and set the court on fire. This is the story of the queen who burned them all alive. Close your eyes and imagine a kingdom where the air smells of rosewater and betrayal. Our story begins not with fire, but with silk and gold. She was not born into the crown. No, she earned it. As a young noblewoman, she learned the language of power faster than most learned to read. Her smile could melt the frost off the iciest courtier, and her words, well, they could cut sharper than any sword. She married the king in a ceremony so grand, the church bells rang for 3 days. At first, she was the darling of the realm. The people adored her beauty, the court admired her wit. But in the marble corridors of the palace, she was already studying every glance, every whisper. The kingdom she stepped into was a nest of snakes. Nobles plotted, alliances shifted like sand, and loyalty was worth less than a goblet of watered wine. She watched, she learned, she remembered. When the king fell ill, she stepped forward, not hesitantly, but with the confidence of someone who had always known this day would come. She took the reins of the throne and never once looked back. Some said she ruled with grace, others said with fear. The truth, both were correct. Her early reign was marked by reforms and grand feasts, but under the shimmer of celebration, she tightened her grip. Servants swore her eyes could read your thoughts. Courtiers began to bow a little lower, speak a little softer. And yet, behind their polite smiles, seeds of rebellion quietly took root. The queen noticed, she always noticed, and in her heart a spark was lit, the kind that would one day set her entire court aflame. The palace glittered like a jewel in the heart of the kingdom. Gold-threaded banners hung from the vaulted ceilings, and laughter echoed through the marble halls. At the queen's command, every evening became a spectacle. Feasts that overflowed with roasted swans, spiced wine, and sugared fruits. Musicians played lute and harp, while masked dancers spun under chandeliers dripping with crystal. To an outsider, her court seemed like paradise. But behind the velvet curtains, the air was heavy with secrets. Courtiers whispered in corners, trading favors for influence. One smile could win you a seat at the queen's side, but one wrong word could see you gone by morning. She cultivated these rivalries like a gardener pruning roses, keeping them beautiful, but always sharp with thorns. Her allies were chosen carefully, a silver-tongued diplomat who could charm any foreign envoy, a young knight whose loyalty was as fierce as his sword, a lady-in-waiting who always knew the latest rumor before it reached the queen's ear. But alliances in this court were as fragile as spun glass. One day, a trusted friend might toast to your health. The next, they might be whispering to your enemy. Slowly, paranoia began to take root. Every hushed conversation became suspicious. Every laugh behind a closed door felt like mockery. At night, she would walk the palace halls alone, her footsteps echoing against cold stone, wondering which of her smiling companions secretly plotted her downfall. The queen's court sparkled by candlelight, but its beauty hid a dangerous truth. In this palace, loyalty was just another mask, and everyone was playing a part in a game where the stakes were life and death. Whispers can be louder than drums. One cold evening, as the torches hissed in their sconces, a pale-faced servant knelt before the queen. He spoke of a rumor, a plan whispered in wine-soaked corners, that certain members of her court dreamed of replacing her. The words fell like poison into her mind. She dismissed the servant with a smile, but her eyes had turned to steel. In the days that followed, she moved through her court like a shadow draped in velvet, watching, listening. Every laugh seemed sharper, every friendly glance carried a hidden blade. And then she decided, if treachery was to be hunted, it would be in her own way. She announced a grand celebration, a night of music, feasts, and dancing. Invitations flowed like gold dust through the kingdom, sent to every noble, every knight, every ambitious courtier. The great hall began to change under her orders. Marble floors were polished until they glowed. Banners in crimson and gold hung from the high arches. 100 candles waited to be lit, their wax as white as bone. She even dictated the seating arrangement, where each ally, enemy, and suspected traitor would sit, and how close they'd be to the queen herself. Servants carried in barrels of wine, trays of exotic fruits, and meats roasted to perfection. The scent of cinnamon and honey drifted through the corridors. From the outside, it was a vision of royal generosity. But behind her jeweled smile, she was counting faces and sharpening her plans. The celebration was set for the full moon. And on that night, the queen swore to herself, masks would fall, and perhaps so would heads. The great hall glittered like a jewel in the darkness. Candles burned in silver holders. The scent of roasted meats and spiced wine filled the air, and laughter echoed beneath the painted ceiling. Every noble of worth was here, dressed in silk, dripping in gold, trading jokes and secret glances. The queen sat at the high table, a serene smile fixed upon her face. She lifted her goblet, her emerald eyes sweeping over the crowd like a hawk circling above. Every seat was filled, exactly as she had planned. Outside, the guards shifted into position. The heavy oak doors creaked shut. The clang of iron bolts locking into place was swallowed by the music. A few glanced toward the sound but thought nothing of it. Then a faint crackle, a flicker in the shadows, the smell of smoke. The queen rose slowly, her voice, calm yet commanding, carried through the hall. Tonight, we purge treachery from this court. The torches at the edges of the room flared, not with gentle light, but with roaring flame. Curtains ignited, tables caught, and in moments the air was thick with smoke. Panic erupted. The nobles clawed at the locked doors, their jewels glinting in the firelight. Some cried her name, others cursed it, but her gaze never wavered. The music was gone now, replaced by the desperate pounding of fists, the choking coughs, the screams. Flames licked the walls, curling up to the ceiling in a dance as graceful as any court performance. And through it all, the queen stood still, a lone figure in crimson and gold, her shadow stretching long across the burning floor. Morning broke over the blackened shell of the royal hall. The once gilded pillars stood like charred bones, and the air still reeked of smoke and sorrow. The queen emerged, her face pale but composed, flanked by guards. She told the survivors and the city's trembling masses that she had saved the kingdom from traitors plotting her downfall. Her words were measured, almost rehearsed. She spoke of loyalty, of betrayal, and of the need for decisive action. A ruler who hesitates, she declared, does not rule for long. To some, she sounded like a protector willing to sacrifice a few for the many. To others, she was the very monster they feared. In the weeks that followed, fear became her shadow. Some whispered her name as a curse, others in reverent awe. The court was rebuilt, but it was never the same. Its laughter was quieter, its eyes always watching. Foreign envoys spoke carefully, never meeting her gaze too long. Centuries later, historians still argue. Was she a tyrant driven mad by power, or a desperate queen facing an invisible dagger? Records are contradictory, and truth has been buried under ashes and fear. They say that if you walk past the ruins on a windless night, you can still hear the muffled sounds of a feast, followed by the crackle of flames and the screams of those who never left. The ghosts of her court, forever trapped in their final dance.